Well, welcome to Valley Hoops Insider Podcast, part of the Valley Hoops Insider website. I'm Harry Schroeder, editor of the site, host of the show. And you can see right there on the screen with me, Kevin Saal. He is the athletic director at Murray State University. And of course, people here on our site, we cover both the Ohio Valley Conference and the Missouri Valley Conference. And the Racers are kind of bridging the gap right now. And so it's kind of an interesting time. And Kevin, first, I just want to say thanks for taking time out of your crazy schedule to hang out and to talk hoops and to talk Murray State with us today.
Oh, absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. I appreciate the opportunity, Harry, and certainly appreciate all the work that you do covering the OVC and the MVC. Add a lot of context and flavor to matchups, and I know it takes a lot of time. You do great work, so thanks for having me on.
Oh, we love those leagues. You're relatively new as the athletic director there, just a couple of years, and you were at Kentucky before that. Just tell us a little bit about you, how you ended up at Murray.
So I grew up in a very small college town in Manhattan, Kansas. My dad was a psychology professor. Mom worked in the College of Arts and Sciences. Dad's career took him through higher academics at 3 or 4 institutions. He finished up as a provost, and I was a student athlete at 2 different institutions, undergrad. I got my master's degree at KU in Lawrence. I started working at Kansas State in 2000, made a stop at UMKC, a 12-year stop at Kentucky, and have just closing in on 3 years at Murray State. I started in March of 2019, right towards the end of that magical season that the Racers had with John Morant.
So obviously the college life is in you at birth. I mean, in you the whole time. It's an exciting place to be, isn't it? The college campus.
It really is. I can tell you, and your program is only so long, but Dad being a professor, we've got 2 older sisters. In the summertime, we would go up. His academic load was pretty light. We would actually go up and hang out in the empty office or the break room in the psychology building at Kansas State. And Dad would take us to the student union. Occasionally, he'd have us actually sit in on a class. There was one child psychology class where they were focusing in on TV and advertising and its impact on, like, Dad would have us in the classes. So I've been on a college campus, kind of born and raised, for a long time. And Dad and Mom were both very supportive in terms of me and my sister's athletics, and also getting us exposed to fine arts and higher education and athletics at Kansas State. So I got to grow up watching coaches like Jack Hartman and Lon Kruger and Dana Altman and Bill Snyder, and it was just ate up with athletics and the culture with intercollegiate athletics.
A lot of those guys I've met, those are good people you're talking about. So you're at Murray now as the athletic director, and that's just got to be a gigantic, wide kind of job. I mean, you've got all the different sports and then raising finance, all those kinds of things. It's got to be pretty demanding.
It's a fun job. And I've learned from some unbelievable mentors in the business. My greatest mentor is Mitch Barnhart, who's the AD at Kentucky. And he's unbelievable, not only while you're there, but since I've left, we probably chat once a week or once every 2 weeks. And he's always calling to check in and see how things are going. And he's a constant barometer for me. But working in athletics for the last 25 years, I've been able to work with some unbelievable coaches and just some great administrators, whether it's Rob Mullins that's at Oregon or John Cohen's at Mississippi State, Scott Strickland at Florida, Greg Byrne at Alabama, overlapping with those guys at Kentucky. You just don't know during that time in the current period that, man, these guys are going to go off and do some amazing things. For me, it was just soaking up everything that I could during that opportunity. It's prepared us well for this opportunity.
We're going to talk a little bit, or we're going to talk a lot about you guys joining the Missouri Valley Conference. Before we get to there, Matt McMahon, I've just got so much respect and I enjoy watching him work, enjoy talking to him. Tell the people in the Missouri Valley Conference that are going to be watching this podcast, just tell them more about Matt McMahon.
Well, I will start with just working in this business for 25 years. There are certainly coaches that separate themselves. And if I had to create a Mount Rushmore of coaches, Matt McMahon would be on it. He is first and foremost highly attentive to the student athlete experience. Our guys have great relationship with him. He's very intentional and purposeful in terms of selecting staff. So he's got a dynamic group of leaders of men, is how I would refer to his staff. He is highly involved in every detail that he possibly could be, whether that's scheduling, recruiting. He manages and navigates his way through those conversations in a really great way. He's grown tremendously as a head coach in the last 7 years, and we are thrilled to have him, his wife Mary, and their kids. They love Murray, and he has obviously growing up in the coaching business. One of his mentors is Coach Prohm, and being on Coach Prohm's staff and then have an opportunity to lead the Racers here, I know has been just a great honor for him. And he treats it like that every single day of the week, every minute of the day. He does a phenomenal job honoring the job and respecting the job and pushing us forward. Ultimately, he produces incredible teams. And our fans are just thrilled to have him here in Murray, and it's been an unbelievable experience.
When I talk to him, he just gushes, right? He gushes about his players. I'll ask him about a guy and he'll just go off and he's this. I mean, like it comes from internal, doesn't it? It comes from the insides.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He is a basketball junkie, as you would expect. He will come up with some of the most interesting stats. If you follow the Racer Hoops, the men's basketball Twitter and Instagram, a lot of those stats will make it on digital graphics that go out, and we just do an awesome job. He promotes the program so well and represents our university and our basketball program in a first-class manner.
So Murray State, longtime charter member of the OVC. The idea of leaving the Ohio Valley Conference had to be, I don't know, emotionally challenging for the locals, the staff, the people that have been there a long time.
Harry, I don't think there's any question with that. If you look at the OVC was actually formed prior to World War II and was on pause. Roy Stewart, who was the football coach here and athletics director here, was paramount in forming the OVC back during that time. It was on pause over World War II and then really kickstarted in 1948. And the Racers won the first OVC championship in football in 1948. Just a great history. You start thinking about recent history with Coach Green, Ron Green ushering in the modern era of Racer basketball, if you will. Since 1980, the Racers have won 55% of the postseason OVC tournament championships in basketball. And I could hit you with stats all day long. From that perspective, you talk about longevity within a league. We did a little bit of research as part of the process with the Missouri Valley Conference to say of the 358 Division I institutions that exist today, what percentage of those would you say are in the same league that today that they were in 1948? Harry, what would you think that percentage would be?
It would be pretty low.
Yeah, it's 7.2%.
Wow.
And so our loyalty is unquestioned. We are who we are because of the OVC. We're incredibly appreciative of that. We want to honor that and certainly hope that our comments have done that. Our fans certainly are reflective of and retrospective about everything that the OVC has meant. You got to remember, we have fans that if they're in maybe they're past their working age and they're in their 60s and 70s, they've lived through 3 or 4 generations of OVC. And so it's all they've ever known. And so there's certainly excitement about the next step, but there's obviously a desire for us to exit well and honor where we've been.
The Missouri Valley came calling. I don't know the exact process. Loyola leaves, Belmont comes, Murray becomes a team really on the radar. Can you take us through that process just a little bit? Timelines, conversations, just a little bit of how it all came to pass.
Well, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners and your viewers know, it's been an incredibly volatile environment in college athletics the last 2 or 3 years. In a lot of fronts, whether it's name, image, likeness, whether it's some of the litigation that's going on nationally, conference realignment, the one constant has been change in college athletics. And so as we, studied the landscape, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of what the OVC membership looked like. You'll recall within the last year, there's been 4 institutions that have left, and we certainly haven't taken a 74-year partnership for granted in any respect. but felt like it was prudent from an asset preservation perspective, from just representing our programs the right way, for us to take a look. And so late September, early October, we made a statement that we were going to look at all options up to and including remaining in the OVC. And we did that. We spent, excuse me just a second, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that, I had a phone call.
No worries.
So we did that. We looked at all of our options. The one very, very gratifying part of the experience was just the amount of interest in the racers. And I think that's a credit to the generations of coaches and fans and student athletes that have built something really special here. And it became very early on, it became very clear that there was significant mutual interest shared interest between Murray State and the Missouri Valley Conference. And so that conversation continued for a period of time, certainly quietly. There was a presentation that we participated in and enjoyed doing so. We have a great story to tell at Murray State, and Dr. Jackson and our Board of Regents have been incredibly supportive as we tried to tell that story. And then that culminated in an invite, which we are just incredibly excited and grateful for. And there's great excitement for what lies ahead for Murray State athletics. We are currently engaged in a vetting process with the Missouri Valley Football Conference as well. And I know your show focuses predominantly on basketball, but all 15 of our sports will be represented within the Missouri Valley Conference, or provided, again, we're given an opportunity to join the Missouri Valley Football Conference, that we would do that as well.
Just a spectacular football conference as well. So it could be a great thing for Murray State. Were there other conferences that you had maybe even serious conversations with?
Harry, I would tell you that we were willing to engage and discuss with anyone that had interest. And there certainly was a period of time in that process where we were incredibly active over the phone, without getting into specifics regarding the who, when, what, where, and why. I would tell you there was great interest in the racers, and as a global brand, we perform well academically as an institution. The enrollment has been flat to up, which is pretty rare, and certainly in today's times. Athletics has been very strong over the last several years, and I will tell you, blessed to walk into a situation athletically, the 2018-19 academic athletic year, we won 7 OVC championships and placed 100th in the Directors' Cup out of 356 Division I institutions. So incredibly strong championship level programs, and there was great interest in that. And so it was an enjoyment to be a part of that process. But as I mentioned, relatively early on, the significant mutual interests between the Missouri Valley Conference and Murray State University was established, and we pursued that aggressively.
You guys said at your press conference, I think 90 or 91% of your student body comes from what will be the new Missouri Valley Conference footprint. So that had to be a big part of it. What else about the Missouri Valley Conference really interested leadership there at Murray State?
Well, I think you have, at a high level, you have similar institutions, right? Similar DNAs, whether you're talking about enrollments, ACTs, academic support, academic performance, funding, geographic region, and the footprint certainly helps. And so you look at it at a very high level, does it make sense as a university to align ourselves with these brands? And it certainly did in this particular case. You've got some wonderful institutions in the Missouri Valley Conference. Then you look at it athletically, and you're joining the Missouri Valley Conference, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was founded in 1907. It's the second oldest league in the country. It's the stability is one thing. The performance over time is another. And you start looking at whether it's basketball, baseball, women's basketball, softball, soccer, that league has performed incredibly well. Growing up in the Midwest, I followed 2 leagues, the Big 8 at the time, and the Missouri Valley Conference. And the Missouri Valley Conference has evolved over time. When you look at all the different institutions that have been a part of that league since 1907, it's an honor to be a part of that. So you've had incredible success in each one of those sports. And that's certainly something that we wanted to align our athletic programs to. I think whenever you start talking about multiple bids in the NCAA championships, those are positive attributes that you want to align your programs with.
How excited are you, maybe like positively and kind of that visceral kind of feeling about Belmont and Murray going to that league? I think that, to me, adds just some spice and some excitement to the whole thing.
It does. Now, I will tell you, it is a rivalry. It's not a bitter rivalry. They're great people at Belmont. Scott Corley's been unbelievable in our time together in the OVC, and look forward to transitioning with him to the Missouri Valley Conference. Good people, great institution. Belmont does a wonderful job in a number of their athletic and academic programs, great university leadership. So it's a great rivalry for the fans. We saw here just a couple of weeks ago, we played the basketball game at their place, had a great showing. We play them again here in the CFSB Center on February 24th. I highly anticipate it'll be close to a sellout, if not a sellout. It's a great rivalry. It reminds me a little bit of some of the old Kansas State, Kansas rivalries, the Kentucky-Louisville type rivalry. It is a strong rivalry.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that play out in the MVC. Well, while I've been watching it in the OVC, and I had Scott Corley on a program like this after he and I happened to sit next to each other at a St. Louis U Belmont game, and we happened to sit next to each other on press row. And I mean, he's a fan. I mean, like, he is engaged with what's going on. What kind of athletic director are you? I mean, are you that guy too? I mean, you super engaged, or are you that guy that sits back a little bit?
Well, I would tell you, in terms of pulling for invested interest in our student athletes and our coaches' success, I'm a massive fan. My style is more so to, and I learned this from Mitch and from Mark Coyle, who's currently at Minnesota, is some of the best athletic directors are able to navigate pathways and allocate resources and remove obstacles and do it very, very well behind the scenes without having to be seen. That's certainly not the primary role of an athletics director. We need to push our coaches and our student athletes out front. So my style is that I'm a huge fan and advocate of them. I don't sit well at events. I need to be moving around but very much dialed in. Mom and Dad did a great job of establishing appreciation in all sports for us. I was a student athlete in Olympic sport, swimming and diving. My sister played collegiate softball. And so over the course of 25 years, I've become great fans of all of those programs.
Jeff Jackson is the brand new commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference, and a lot of the Missouri Valley fans are getting to know him. But talk about your interactions with Jeff Jackson and just your perceptions of who he is.
Well, he's been first class from day one. We have some, it's a small world in athletics. We have some mutual relationships with his time in the Big 12, my time at Kansas State. Know a lot of those administrators from the Big 12 office. In fact, the AD that I worked for at Kansas State, Tim Weiser, is currently a senior associate commissioner, a deputy commissioner at the Big 12. And so we had that element certainly to talk about. And then his background as a basketball coach. He's made some stops at some institutions. Again, I mentioned earlier, my dad finished up as a provost at St. Bonaventure in upstate New York. Both my folks are from upstate New York, so that was going home for them. He made a stop there as an assistant coach. So we had an instant bond in terms of the Big 12 and his experience with basketball. And then as we engaged in the process with him, and our passions for Murray State came through, and his admiration for Murray State, he does a wonderful job of navigating those processes, of thinking ahead and putting the league in a position to be successful down the road. I look forward to building our relationship, and I've certainly enjoyed it very much up to this point.
The OVC tournament in Evansville has been really successful in terms of fan support, largely because Murray State fans show up. I call Evansville Murray State North when I think about that tournament. And I think the Missouri Valley fans are in for, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I think the Missouri Valley fans are in for something of a surprise spring of 2023 when the Murray State fans descend on St. Louis.
Well, I hope it's a pleasant surprise. Our fans are They travel significantly well. And I would say not only the spring of 2023, I would anticipate my colleagues in the Missouri Valley Conference seeing a lot of Racer fans as we travel on the road and going to different places. This is a athletics passionate place. It is a rabid basketball fan base, and they do a wonderful job. So one of the slides, Harry, that we used in our presentation with the Missouri Valley Conference was to document and illustrate some of the best single game crowds that we've seen in Evansville at the Ford Center in the OVC tournament. So I get here in March of 2019. Week 2, we're at the OVC tournament, and Jaws lighting up the world, and we go into a semifinal game against Jacksonville State at the time, and we set the single game postseason OVC tournament single game attendance record. And it was don't hold me to it, was somewhere around 8,600. That was the semifinal game. Again, a record for the OVC. The final game against Belmont, again, speaking back to the Belmont rivalry, was 10,000. I think it was announced at 10,600.
And
so
that's
we
all
set
it
the
holds.
record the first night, and then the second night blew it away by about 25%. And the place was unbelievable. And our fans travel incredibly well. You know, I just, before you and I got on today, I was having a conversation with our ticket staff. Our fans are so excited about postseason basketball. We go ahead and we pre-sell it on our season ticket renewal form every year. So those season ticket renewal forms will come out in April or May for the upcoming basketball season. We'll do football renewals and then get into basketball. We've got a slot on there for them to go ahead and put a deposit on their postseason tournament tickets. And that's always been appreciated by the OVC because it helps them understand from a revenue standpoint what that might look like. So that particular year and this year, our pre-sale is almost identical. So if that gives you any indication about what the OVC tournament's going to look like in March, again, provided we do a good job getting our students up there and promote the single game sales as well, we anticipate a great crowd up there this year.
Let's talk about this year a little bit. Tevin Brown just set the OVC record for three-pointers in a career. KJ Williams was just a third-time Player of the Week award winner. Tevin's won it 3 times. Juice has won it once. You've got a pretty stinking good basketball team this year.
Yeah, Matt and his staff have just done a phenomenal job with this group. And I will tell you, everybody had their challenges with the previous year with COVID. And we certainly experienced ours from a health, from a cultural perspective, just a real challenge. And some teams did really well. And we struggled in some areas. Administratively, we struggled in some areas, but they've bounced back really well. I will say, I was talking with Justice Juice Hill's parents the other night after the win against Moorhead, and being involved in basketball for over 20 years, I can count on one hand the number of players that have improved the way that Justice has improved from last year to this year in terms of taking care of the ball. I mean, Harry, he had a game the other day where he was 20 points, 10 assists, and 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
And man, he's just done a phenomenal job. His shot selection, his off the dribble, off the ball movement. He's quick off the dribble. He will probe defenses and find that alleyway to get to the bucket when we really need a bucket. He's done a phenomenal job. KJ has just been an absolute grinder down low. And you can tell the scout as you start to play these teams for the second time is get physical with KJ, and man, he's going to battle every game and doing a phenomenal job. He's certainly a pleasure to be around. Carter Collins has been a great addition to us. He's in the starting lineup, grad transfer from Davidson, has done phenomenal. And then of course, Tevin Brown just broke the OVC career record in 3-pointers, and he does so much more than just shoot. He dribbles off the ball well. He moves off the ball well. He finds his shots. He can drive when he needs to and create. But one of the reasons why Tevin has been so much improved this year is because of Juice, because Juice gets him the ball in some really great spots, which is what Ja did as well. So Tevin can certainly create, but he does so well with a true point guard that can set him up for some great things. And we've got 3 phenomenal players. That being said, Trey Hannibal, Carter Collins, DJ Burns. I mean, DJ Burns is an offensive rebounding factory. It's been unbelievable to watch. our guys take pride in offensive rebounds. In fact, we've got a big board that we put in the student section where they're actually tracking offensive rebounds throughout the game, because it's become a source of pride for those guys. So great roster, great coaches and staff and support staff. And it's been a lot of fun this year.
Now, see, that's what I wanted to hear. Listen, you're just knocking it all out of the park, giving us a great scouting report on each guy. I remember talking to Matt preseason, and you had all these, a couple of different transfers coming in, and it looked like they were going to get time and so forth. And I said, tell me about Justice Hill. And he said, well, and he said, I'm glad you brought him up. He's worked so hard. He's going to have a breakout season. He was talking to me about Juice's work ethic in the off season. And so about 4 or 5 weeks in, I said, Coach, you told me he was going to break out. He told me ahead of time he was going to break out. And man, has he been just amazing, I think, all season long.
Hey, as good a coach as Matt is, from late October through April, he is just as good, if not better, from February through May. And that February through May, within that spring training and over the course of the summer, that's really the time where you make some hay from an individual player development perspective. And he and his staff have done a phenomenal job with Juice. And we covered that before. What's interesting is, just anecdotal, I walked into our gym. Our offices are connected right to the CFSB Center. So I walked in there and I watched, it was pre-practice. Juice was getting some shots up and going through some shooting drills. And then I had a reason to be in there a little bit later, about 2 or 3 hours later, and it was post-practice, and Juice was going through some shooting drills. And of course, he's drenched. He'd been through a really challenging practice, but he's shooting, 3-3-pointers from about 6 or 7 different spots around the arc, and clearly getting frustrated when he didn't make 3 in a row at a certain spot. And then he would go back and, he was doing his deal. He was grinding through it. And what was really interesting, that was about 3 days before Belmont. Of course, he goes, you can't forecast going 6 for 6 in the first half. And then the 7th one, we give him a little heck on the 7th one, because he started drinking the Kool-Aid, and he chucked one up and it banked in. And then he looked over at the bench like this, and everybody thought, you know what, it's his day. But he's certainly earned it. He's worked incredibly hard.
You guys still have a return with Belmont, still have a return with Moorhead, and not to discount the other teams, but those are the 3 best teams in the league without question. And you still have some great rivalry games left this year, and then the OVC tournament. I just think the close to the season in the OVC is going to be very special.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So we're at Austin Peay this Thursday. We host Edwardsville, who is a much improved team. Edwardsville's got a couple of really special players, and it's been fun to watch everybody grow in this process together. And then we've got road contests at Moorhead. Will be plenty of a challenge. And then we host Belmont on the 24th of February. Both the Austin Peay game that we host on Thursday, the 17th of February, and the Thursday, the 24th of February game against Belmont will be on ESPNU. So if folks can't be in the arena, we'd welcome you to come to the CFSB Center. But if you can't be there, it'll be on ESPNU, and surely to be a great night of basketball.
Excited about all that. Before I let you go, your broadcasters, I mentioned this on Twitter the other day, your broadcasters, I think, are second to none. Neil and Kenny do such a great job. And, I mentioned on Twitter the other day, they were doing the Moorhead game. They do all the games, but they were doing the Moorhead game, and it was also on the TV coverage. And they did such a great job they were homers for sure. I mean, right? They're the Murray State people, but they were so appreciative and respectful and celebrated good plays by Moorhead too. I just think they're so good at what they do.
Well, those guys are phenomenal, and they are so rare in this business. We've been blessed to work with some great radio personalities. First off, Neil's been doing it forever. So Neil's familiarity and his history and his knowledge of history with the Racers is unparalleled. Then you combine that with Dave Winder, our associate AD for media relations and communications, in the background, feeding those guys stats. They do the road trips together, those 3 guys. So they're constantly talking about it. Of course, Kenny was a basketball coach himself, and then also an administrator within Murray State Athletics for a period of time as well. So he's got this unbelievable, well-rounded coach's perspective, but also from an administrative. So between the three of those guys, they produce unbelievable broadcasts. And I would tell you, if there's one downside to, the Missouri Valley Conference has a deal where you need separate TV broadcasts when you broadcast on ESPN Plus. They prefer you not tie your radio in over the top of the ESPN Plus broadcast. So we're going to have a heck of a time trying to decide where we put those guys, whether you put them on radio or you put them on the video component, because they do a phenomenal job. Neil does all our coaches shows. He's got good relationships with the student athletes as well. So it's fun to watch, fun to be a part of.
I've done a ton of play-by-play stuff myself and radio and TV and so forth. And so I'm very discriminating is all I'm saying. I'm not even saying I'm any good, but when I listen to people, I really analyze, and those guys are spectacular. And I think you guys are blessed to have them, and so are the fans.
Harry, there's nothing like sitting with somebody, whether it's a coach, scouting a game, or sitting at a table, listening to a radio broadcast or doing what you do. Or when you're sitting with somebody and they're in their element, it is so much fun to watch it.
I'm with you.
We were in Naples for the MTE, the multi-team event, pre-season. And I got a chance to sit at the table with those guys and just listen and did an occasional interview, but I wouldn't take the headsets off because I just wanted to keep listening to them. They're phenomenal to listen to.
They're really outstanding. Kevin, appreciate your time today. So excited about you guys joining the Missouri Valley Conference and bringing those crazy fans and bringing your outstanding basketball program. And I know there are other sports and successful other sports, but like, as you mentioned, we're a basketball centric site. So appreciate your time today. Welcome to the Valley.
Thank you very much. We are so blessed and honored to be a part of it, and go Racers.
That's Kevin Saal. He's the athletic director at Murray State University of the OVC on their way to the Missouri Valley Conference. I'm Harry Schroeder reminding you, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.